Recommendation from the law director is to adopt the director's advice on proceeding on this case. Is that a motion?
Second. I make a motion to
Motion by Commissioner Keesler, second by Commissioner Schoaf. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. New business. Veteran Service Report and Presentation. I don't know if Mr. Oki is still here or not.
They're all familiar. I think he's done that.
You'll find Jeff telling me that.
Veteran Service Report. If you're coming back in, come in now, I'm closing the door.
Keep her on the bars. Turkey, you're up to bat.
Thank you, sir.
I mean, everything's kind of highlighted. We had another good month. One of the main ones that I want to highlight for the community, just for situation awareness, we had a veteran who was getting some subsidized housing. We got him $370,000 back pay. So he went from being eligible for subsidized housing to needing some assistance to make sure that, financial scammers didn't kind of get a hold of him. So we're trying to line him up with, to get a VA home loan and to be able to buy a home here in Sumner County where he can live the rest of his days. And then we've had a couple of folks with permanent total disability ratings, and they're kind of life-changing because then the spouse will get life insurance for the rest of her life and health insurance from the VA. Another good month. Go back to work. Any questions?
Questions from the committee? All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate it, sir.
Appreciate what you do.
All right. Item B, law director contract. Do I have a motion? Motion.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Schoaf, second by Commissioner Rogers. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Any discussion? This or just have a motion?
I'll outlay it real quick, that's
Yeah.
okay. Basically what's happened here is this got piggybacked, I believe, when Ben Allen's the one that drafted it, and that went straight from the vote to me having to sign in about 37 seconds. And part of it was disability insurance, like the previous law director was getting before, which it sounds great in principle. However, she started it at a much younger age than I came into it, so what was happening was they kept jacking up the price of this. So what we're doing is we're just asking that, or I'm just asking that number 6 on the contract is removed in its entirety, and this is already on budget's agenda, just to talk about how to just reallocate that money just as a line, back into my line, just as a, spread it out as pay, because otherwise it'd be that, I just get it as a lump sum. And it's, I want to say the last time we looked, it was running about $8,000 a year, and after Mr. Long and I did some quantitative analysis on what was out there, we just kind of split the baby on that, and we're going to keep it at $4,500, so that's pretty much a wash across the board. But again, that part will be discussed in budget. So for legislative purposes, it's basically just removing 6 because it is no longer, it's moved. And if it stays in there, you all keep running the risk of incurring another disability cycle that I could make a demand for money.
So moved. Motion by Commissioner Schoaf, second by Commissioner Rogers. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item C, bond approval for finance director. Have a motion. So moved. Second by Commissioner Schoaf, second by Commissioner Brown. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Docketing Judicial Commissioner annual report. Nothing to do with that, so move that on. Item E, the adoption of the county employee general personnel policies and procedures, including amendments 1 and 2 for general sessions 2 juvenile court, and no longer use the juvenile court policies and procedures. Do I have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Brown for discussion or approval? Motion for Commissioner Brown to approve, seconded by Commissioner Klein. Is there any discussion?
I just want to note here, is this one, I have not had a chance to review
This was a request from Judge Howard's office.
So is it from them? Is this
The
from
request is from Judge Howard.
Okay.
That's my question. We're not putting it on them, they're just putting it.
No, they actually requested to be under the county policy.
Okay. I mean, they're not here to speak to it, they're bigger than I am. But I just am going to vote on something I haven't read. I don't like doing that. It's probably not good to admit, but I have a long week.
You got to the next Monday.
Okay, so, all right, I'm good.
Commissioner Pond?
Our attorney's been through it and don't see any flaws with it.
They're just wanting to fall under the normal county
Same thing
policy,
we
so that's even better.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Yours is, no, I got a motion, I thought it was discussion, my apologies. We already have a motion to approve by Commissioner Brown, second by Commissioner Klein, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item F, is a resolution directing the trustee of the William and Martha Brown Technology Trust to transfer funds to Sumner County for the purposes of establishing the William and Martha Brown Trust. This was sent back from the full commission. Do you have a motion for discussion?
Motion for discussion.
Moved by Commissioner Short, second by Commissioner Brown, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Commissioner Short.
So, now this is one I have read. I don't know what we want to do here. I guess I'm going to kind of state out my thoughts on it, and I may have a motion at the end of it. There are a few things at play. One is, where is the $500,000? My understanding is the $500,000 remains in an investment vehicle with the rest of the funds that were. Can I just, as I'm doing that, can I just get confirmation from the county mayor, since he's a trustee on that? Is that all right if I do that? That the $500,000, which is per the will to be assigned to the county for the construction of the park, that $500,000 has been in an investment vehicle along with the rest of the funds of the trust. Is that correct? Okay. Presumably drawing interest with the rest of it. Okay. Item 2 is that the will explicitly states that these funds are to be used for the construction of a park. Is that correct? Okay.
It's more than that, actually. That's not entirely correct. My understanding is for the upkeep and renovation of the brown house as well.
Correct.
In the future.
I was going to be item 3 then.
Yeah, it does not include the house.
Okay. So, let me talk real quick about item 3 then. Item 3 is around, this is just item 3 in my mind here.
Oh, okay.
But I'm just trying to lay out facts. So the next item here is that there is an MOU that was drafted by, at the time, Mr. Holt, who was a trustee, and approved by the school board. But was it ever ratified by the county commission?
No, it was not.
Well, it was part of TDEC grant to get the money. So because, and again, this is all for me, okay, so this is the way that I understand it, is that to get that grant, we had to have a parks department. We did not have a parks department, therefore we did a memorandum of understanding.
Park board.
Parks department, to be able to maintain the park. That's why we had the school system maintaining the park, because it was a logical decision with the school system already having equipment on site at the schools to be able to maintain the park. And that also, they would bear that expense of maintaining it. The house was parceled separate, away from the grant, and then also as part of the life estate. That's why it had a separate parcel number. And then the school system said that they would redo the house because they could do that internally, and the county would not have to bear the expense of the upkeep of the house and the renovation of the house. It's just my understanding that it's quite extensive to remove the brick and to remove the back section, and they were able to do that with their current staff, whereas we would have to bid it out and pay for it outside of other expenses.
So, can I just do one more thing, and I've got to.
Yeah, I want to have it on the record.
So, this MOU, in this MOU, the county was going to take over, was going to be responsible for a certain amount of maintenance every year?
The county was going to contribute a dollar amount.
That's what I thought. So that's, okay. So I have my thoughts on that MOU, but it probably makes sense for the law director to make those comments.
I'm going to jump in the queue here. The commission, I wasn't a commission when this all came through. The commission was never made aware of an MOU. When this came before the commission in September of 2020 and October of 2020, there was no supporting documentation, no grant documents, there was no MOU, there was nothing except for one paragraph resolution in October of 2020 appropriating $500,000 to match, basically from the William Brown Trust Fund, which I'm not even sure we were even legally able to do when you look at the spirit of the trust, in order to get a grant. The TDEC grant discussion, it was a county parks board that was a requirement by TDEC in order to go through the grant process, and that happened in September of 2020. I will be on the record, I voted against this the entire time because this was all dealing with the creation, it's tied into the Greenway, Upper Station Camp, which we were fighting, and it was very sensitive at the time, going to the new school, going all the way to the Bridal House, from Lower Station Camp to Cottontown, Highway 25 and the Bridal House. And so I know that there were several of us that voted no in September. I believe myself, Commissioner Wright, and Commissioner Moe Taylor. Commissioner Moe Taylor was absent in October. I might have been the sole lone vote in October on granting those funds because of my sensitivity to property owners like Commissioner Holmes and her property. But there's no MOU that the county commission ever voted on. And the biggest problem is that, is obviously the statutory authority of the county mayor is not for the disposition of real property owned by the county, whether it's joint ownership, full ownership, or any other type of ownership. So Mayor Holt didn't have the authority to enter into that and do that. And the MOU is also not legally binding regarding committing any funding the commission has not voted on. Because the commission never voted on any type of maintenance agreement, any type of future funds. That never came before me. It was never on an agenda packet. You're not going to find it in minutes. You're just going to find a resolution sheet. You're going to find an appropriation sheet. That's all you're going to find. So this is not a legal MOU, in my opinion. It's null and void because it never came to the proper channels because the county mayor doesn't have the authority to both dispose of county property. He doesn't have the authority to commit the county commission to funding something without commission approval on both counts. So I'll just leave it at that. So it's definitely a problem. There's been so many things that are, I don't understand the backwards nature of this county for over a decade of not doing things correctly or transparently. And we're trying to bring things into the light, do things transparently, and do things in the right manner, and obviously getting kickback from every department at every angle because everybody's just used to doing whatever they want to, willy-nilly. And it's unfortunate, but I mean, it's painful when that process has to get corrected. And so if we're going to do something, it needs to at least be legal. And this isn't illegal, in my opinion. But I wanted to hear from the moderator, you guys.
I think you're correct. When I was over there at the Board of Education meeting, the ownership of this park is more or less the school owned. And they were going to set policy as to who could use it, when they could close it down, that kind of thing. Now, if this is a county park, and county board, parks and all that's supposed to take care of it, who owns it? Who's going to set the policy?
The property is deeded in both names, Sumner County and the Board of Education.
Well, look, if I can have a law, I'm going to cut everybody off. I want the law director to address. I know that there was an email that you had sent to the director of schools and that he responded. I guess I would like you to address that if you don't mind, Mr. Law Director. I mean, some of the issues that you found looking into the deed, the trust, the specific language. Some things have been said, the commissioners disagreeing with what, as far as what is factually accurate and true. So would you mind taking us through your understanding of where what's happening, what's not happening, what can we do about it?
Basically, the MOU, I don't see what legal authority it has based on the reasons you've already stated, so I won't run into that again. As far as the park goes, I mean, this goes all the way back to the will. The will says exactly how this is supposed to be handled, and just because everybody went into it with the best of intents, which I'm not going to dispute that, but it doesn't change the fact that it's not being done the way the will said it needed to be done, right out of the gate.
Could you elaborate on that?
Well, if I go right back to the will, and it's not cumbersome to read,
No, it's not.
but it specifically says that you got to be cognizant of the fact that there's a 1 and a 2. The 1 is this home and how it's supposed to be the centerpiece of a park for the county to take care of, to establish and maintain. And it also gives some direction on how the funds are going to be used, not only to create this park, but to provide further maintenance, care, and upkeep of the park. Then you go to number 2, which is the technology trust. And the technology trust is very specific in how those funds are supposed to be distributed as well. So my concern in a lot of this is, one, I don't think the MOU is valid. We've got the follow-up MOU, 3-year confirmation of the understanding of what's going on 3 years later from Mr. Phillips. I'm assuming that's sometime shortly before his departure. So that doesn't hold any water. I do agree that the mayor and the director of the schools are trustees of the technology trust, but that is very specific in how that money's spent. And so this statement that Dr. Langford wrote, we will vote and transfer the $500,000 at that time, that money should have been transferred upon death. That's when it should have happened.
So you're saying that the will was violated at that time by not following the law, following the will, the money was
I think the money should have been transferred into the county's fund, the $500,000 for the creation of this park where the house was to be the centerpiece for only the county to control. And it says here the school system has the home secured. The ownership of, I think, all the property out there, if I'm not mistaken, is jointly owned by the county and the schools. Is that correct? So
Does that include the brown house?
Yes, that's all the property. So however the school board and the county wants to dictate entrance access or use of that property as far as the continuation of the upkeep, y'all can settle that. It's not wrong either way, but you're still, as a county, going to be responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of the house as part of this park.
So, but the funds, that $500,000 that was left was basically in the trust to the county, not to the school board, correct?
Yes.
And so that didn't happen. And that $500,000 was for the historic preservation also of that brown house as just a centerpiece for the park.
Yes.
And nothing more. I mean, it was for that, really to preserve that house so people can enjoy the area around it.
What his intent was, I don't know. I can just tell you what it says, and that's being permanently maintained by the county as the park centerpiece is the house.
So the park is the focal point, nothing else. I mean, excuse me, the house was supposed to be the focal point of whatever park existed and looked like, whether it was just walking trails or just the fields or whatever that was.
Yeah, I don't think there's any specificity here on what they wanted the park to look like, just as long as the home was the centerpiece.
Okay, so the main thing I just want to clear is the home was a centerpiece, and there's no specificity as far as anything, just a park. And a park could be a field with the house as a centerpiece.
I'm sure it could, yes.
Commissioner, sure.
So I don't have a problem with the resolution. I mean, this is where I was kind of getting at a second ago. I just want to get past the wheel. But there's no question that we're going to establish the park. There's no question about it. The only question is, hey, when are we transferring the money? And I do agree with, having read the the will, I do agree with, the law director's take that it should have been transferred before, but at the end of the day, I don't think that's a huge problem, and we can rectify that by just saying, look, we're gonna build this park, which we're doing this resolution, let's go ahead and transfer that over. I do think we should collect the interest. And then and it's binding, I mean, that we are doing this to state that this is going to be used for this and nothing more. However, I do want to, we're walking down the same path that we are still unwinding here with the library. So we've got this joint ownership, so I guess I don't really care if the county owns it and maintains it, or if the school owns it and maintains it. I just want it to be one. And so I really would like to have a discussion, and I don't know, Mr. Mayor, if that's kind of mayor, if it's law director, who that is, but I would really like to know the exact plan of when we transfer this money. Is it, one thing that's logical to me, since we were trying to execute the will, is the will says the county should do it. County, we'll take the money, we will oversee the building and the initial stand-up of the park no matter what. And then at that time, that thing gets deeded either in full to the county or deeded in full to the schools, and whoever has the deed is the one who's responsible for the maintenance and upkeep. I just want to keep it simple.
I don't think that matters or clarifies it. It's simply the upkeep and the park created with it as its centerpiece. Ownership isn't the issue.
It will be. I think we just saw it. It will become the issue.
Mr. Jones, you have.
So, I think you guys are missing some very plain language in here. I'm just gonna read what the will says right here in Codicil number 1, part 1. It says, I specifically bequeath to Sumner County, Tennessee, the county, the cash sum of $500,000 to establish and maintain a public park located at 212 Hunters Lane, Harrisville, Tennessee, with the historic home currently situated thereon being permanently maintained by the county as the park centerpiece. The park shall be known as the William and Martha Brown Park. This bequest shall be a restricted fund held by the county in a separate account and used solely for the purposes of the establishment, promotion, ongoing support, and maintenance of the William and Martha Brown Park, which includes the house. You already said that part. Now, the important part of this, number 2, when he starts talking about the technology trust, the very first sentence is, I devise and bequeath all of the rest and residuary of my property. I'm going to pause right there, because that says he gave the park to the county. Does it not? The residuary of the property goes to the trust, the technology trust. So that means there's a first batch of property that is not in the trust. And then there's a carve-out with plot points, coordinates for the park lined out.
You asked a legal question, I'm going to have the law director answer that. If you can address, is that accurate or not?
I don't think the will is clear on ownership of the house.
When he splits the property, and the first half of it is mentioned and the second half of it is mentioned, to me, that's 2 different properties.
If you're asking me for my legal opinion, there was not a definitive transfer of any part of that property directly to the county.
I just would like to know how you maintain, promote, and establish, and work on this house, and keep everything up, and promote everything when it's on somebody else's property. That makes no sense at all, but it makes clear sense when it's a carve-out and the rest of the property goes to the school, which means the first of the property goes to the county. I don't see how else you can interpret that.
I think that would be a legal question, because it was poorly drafted as far as the breakaway of that house from the rest of that property, but we still have ourselves in the same position, which is it's deeded in both names.
I think, getting back to, if I'm following along from General Ops, and Chairman Klein, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that it's the issue of when the funds weren't properly distributed and or received by the county for this specific goal of maintaining the house and the county being responsible for the park, is my understanding. Is that correct? So What's happening is the school board has taken over the process of creating this park that may or may not exceed the bounds of what's doable, feasible, or maintainable, especially if there was in my opinion, an invalid or illegal MOU with a commitment of $25,000, $28,000, $30,000 a year from the previous county mayor, and it goes through the county commission process. And you're talking about a lot of maintenance costs there for whatever's being proposed. It comes down to, Commissioner Teachers spoke at highways about, fiduciary responsibility and asking the questions of what can the taxpayers bear, and keeping that in mind for right now. What is the scope of the park? Does the school board even have the authority to start making these plans and even breaking ground on something that they don't have the authority to even create according to the will that was written? And do they have the authority to go ahead and start this park and start committing funds to it? And I don't know that they do or not, so I guess I'm seeking clarification based on the discussions I've heard, general ops, based on what you've shared with us and trying to understand how this works. It seems that if the school board is moving forward with plans to do this park, that they don't have the legal authority to do that. And I don't know if that's correct or not. I'm just asking. That's kind of where I'm getting at, because the county commission looks at this. I think the spirit is trying to keep of what that property owner wanted with that house seemed to be the focal point with the park secondary. And I don't know if the vision for the schools is necessarily doing that according to the city.
I think this is two separate issues. Can the school board create this? I think it's 80-something acre was the final outlay on the plat we've been talking about. Can they do that kind of park? I'm sure they can. And it's really independent of what the house is, because the house is its own thing in that it has to be the centerpiece of a park, however big that park is, and it has to be maintained by the county. That's, as long as that requirement's met, the school board can do whatever they want with the rest of the stuff, create this satellite park, even talk to you all about tying in a path through this part of it, but that one section of property out there is under the control of the county and is being funded to the county to do that.
For the house.
For the house.
In the park.
Well, we keep saying park, but the school board can still create whatever park they want.
Sure, but it didn't,
But their creation of a park does not comply with the house. The house is separate. It would be a second park, basically, if it didn't tie in. But that part of the park would be specifically the house as a centerpiece. $500,000 was supposed to be allocated for the repair, upkeep, and maintenance, for whatever.
Well, Commissioner Teacher, you've been for that.
That's what I asked, just because some are not privy to the information. So would you explain the difference, what the MOU that first off, I believe you just said that we can't do an MOU without the commission, without the will of the commission, right? So if there's
Not under these terms, no.
If there's not a legislative body movement on it, then I'm just curious, would you explain to everyone what that change would have been that is not a legal change, not a legal binding change, but what would that change from the will, what that MOU does to change? What's the extra amount, and just basically just so before we vote on it, that we can see, because if it's not a legal binding thing, we need to make sure that's not in our mind of what, if it's not coming before the county legislative body.
I'm not 100% clear what you're asking me, but
Okay, so just to be clear, there's a will, and then there's the MOU.
Mhm.
And we've already said that's not legal, but what did the MOU say that was changing to the will? What was the addition? What was the?
basically they were calling it part of this 88 park campus, that it would be called the William and Martha Brown Memorial Park at Liberty Creek.
And there was an additional amount of money, wasn't it? That was
Yeah, about $25,000 additional would be funded from the county to the school board for upkeep of this park or some sort of maintenance aspect.
Can I I would like to, I just have a question, and I might make an amendment here, or what, I want to kind of roll back to discussions we had on the Bricky property. Like, I try to keep things as simple as possible. And the county is in the business of roads and security and courts and things like that. And I'm not against a park, especially if we can get one for free. Not against it at all. But like, if the school is already doing this other thing and they have the authority to do it, the simplest thing to me here actually is to deed this over to the schools under the condition that the county will not, will be responsible for none of the upkeep, of it. It's totally on the schools. That to me seems to be the simplest thing. Just let them take care of it. Just get it off our hands. Just totally absolve ourselves of it. Now, if we can't do that because we need to, according to the will, build the thing first, then fine. But I don't know. It's just joint property. If they've already got something going on under there, is there anything that's stopping us? Is there anything that's stopping us from just deeding this to the school?
Can I say one thing, just to finish what I was saying? The reason for my thought, I'm not trying to be out of order, but you butt in, I don't mind. The reason why I was saying that is because ultimately, I did not know Mr. Brown. But I think the tragedy is if there's anything against what he wanted before he died, legally, with that property, I don't want anything against that. I don't care if it says deed it to wherever or whatever. I just want to make sure that we follow the desire of Mr. Brown, because it's his property ultimately that he laid down for however that is. And so what I was getting to is, if that MOU is not legal, not legally binding, and if it wasn't passed before the county legislative body, if it was, great. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just saying whatever. But I'm saying whatever's legal. I just want that will to be followed to the T. That's all. And I believe that's what everybody else around him would want. That's the right thing, and that's what Mr. Brown was standing here. That's what he would want, because it was in his will. So I just think that whatever that is, when you look at it, find out the legal things and show, okay, goes back to the will. What's the will say? Interpret the will and do exactly that. And that's all I want. I don't want to give it to us, give it to them. I don't care. I just want it to be whatever he said. And I think that's whatever motion that can be, I'm all in.
Commissioner Mr. Law Director, you said that the house and then this 88 acres are two separate things?
I'm not sure if they're tying that into the house or not.
Is there a certain amount of property that the house is sitting on?
It was parceled out before he died. He had a life estate in that house to live there until he died, and then it would roll back over to the rest of the property was deeded, which is what happened, and that's what we asked them if they would update on the plat that is getting reviewed again, was to at least mark out where that was. So I want to say it was 0.8 acres.
It was very small.
Yeah, it's not a very big piece of property, but it's marked out specifically to show where the house is.
Yeah, I understand our attorney, and I understand what Commissioner Jones is saying, but what I've heard with Cottontown, Mr. Bricky's will, and he wanted to do what he wanted, and here again with William and Martha Brown, and item 1, I specifically bequeath to Sumner County, and he goes through this and he doesn't talk about property, but in item 2, his first sentence is, I devise and bequeath all the rest and residuary of my property to the Sumner County, Tennessee Board of Education, the board. In item 1, he said, the county. And so, and I'm obviously not an attorney, but if we're trying to determine what Mr. Brown's will was, it seems very clear to me that he wanted the park to be owned by the county and then the rest of it to be owned by the school district, and the mayor and the school superintendent it goes into great detail talking about their responsibilities with the balance of the money, which was substantial. It was $7 or $8 million. And so, do I want to take care of this park as the county and representative District 6? I don't know, but I can tell you that $1.5 million is barely going to touch what the plans that were presented to us several months ago are going to construct. It's just not feasible. But here again, we go back to what did Mr. Brown want, and it seems very clear to me that he was talking about the park is one thing, and the residuary is the schools.
He's hit on a prime case to be litigated. It does not say the properties of counties. That's the problem. He said
You're right.
You will be responsible for the upkeep, taking care of it, and that house is yours to do these things.
Yeah, but it does say the residuary is the schools.
And that would be all the land.
So what about the first?
That could be considered a residuary.
Okay.
So I'm going to say the exact same thing I said when we were talking about the property in Cottontown. If somebody deeds me something in their will, I can do whatever I want with it. I can give it away. I can burn it. I mean, I'm not saying we want to do that, but if you deed it to us, and just because people deed us stuff, that does not necessarily mean that it makes sense to keep and maintain, like, I don't want to be just a giant parks department. Like, I'm not saying we don't want to do that, and we can make what is a logical decision here, but philosophically, Mr. Brown wanted a park. We have money to get a park. We can get a park done, whether it's us that does it, whether the intent is for there to be a park, there are funds for a park. We don't have to pay for it. How that gets done is like a detail.
No, it's not a detail. It's very specific.
But what difference does it make from are we going to sue over this? Why do we care? Except for who owns this thing. And because if somebody deeds me a 1972, a first car I ever had, 1972 Cutlass Supreme. If somebody deeded me a 1972 Cutlass Supreme today and said, hey, I'm deeding this to you, and by the way, it costs $2,500 a month to maintain this, maintain it forever. No. If there's already a park over here, the schools are already doing this thing, and we can logically fold that into an existing operation. I don't see why that's a bad thing. It washes our hands of it.
Well, but
I don't understand.
Your analogy is a very good one. You said you don't take the car, right?
Well, I can take the car and I can sell the car.
But if you're going to do what it said, if you take it, you're going to take it conditioned upon those terms. That's exactly what this is doing. Either take it or don't take it. That's the problem we run into. And by shifting this over to the school board, and at the end of the day, I'm just giving you my legal opinion on what the document says. Can y'all get away with letting the school board take care of all this? That's fine. I don't care. But there are certain pitfalls, and I will say it's not in the spirit of what the will said. So that's all I can say.
If we're going to take it, that's fine too, but I want us to own it. I don't want disjoint. We either, just like I was saying with the library, we take it, we build it, we maintain it, it's a county park, or you guys take it, you take the money, you build it, you maintain it, and we wash our hands of it. Let's just make a simple decision, and I really don't care. That's my opinion.
Commissioner Jones?
It's also important to note that on number 1 of the will, it states that this is to be a public park, which means the public will be running around the school during school hours. I think we understand Mr. Brown's intent was not to have that. It was to have something separate and run for schools. And I still stand by the fact that it is for the county. I believe it's for the county to own and maintain that park. So what we want to do with it in the future, after we get it all set up, after we get it all built, if it ends up working out better for the schools to take it over in the end, that's something else to talk about for another day. But right now, we have an illegal MOU that commits us to up to $25,759.93 per year to maintain it. When he put the money in the account for us to maintain it with, to build it and maintain it with. So we gotta handle the MOU first, and then build a park of our choosing, and do it in a way that is, fiscally responsible to our citizens, whether it's using part of that as maintenance money for ongoing stuff.
I've got a motion.
Can I throw one more thing in here just for consideration? This says that the county be responsible for the upkeep, the care. The box you can work in it's not specific about the care and the upkeep. As long as the 500,000 is with the county as the will directs, if the county wants to enter into something with the school board that says, look, this house needs to be the centerpiece, we're telling you that because we're required to, and then you want them to take care of the upkeep and the support at your direction, which is simply saying, all right, the county said, this is how we're gonna keep it up. And then you put it back on them and they can dovetail this in as long as we can call it a centerpiece of the park. Then you've kind of killed two birds with one stone, or going down the road you are, which is to not be tied to anything, and also not interfere with their park plan. But the park plan's got to tie into the house. That's the only thing that I will tell you has to be done. What the county calls upkeep and maintenance is entirely up to the county, but they've got to be in control of that decision.
The issue, and I'll disagree with Commissioner Jones, public park, probably can access anytime. I can go walk on a track at the beach during the day during school hours, or in some high school exercise. Community does that, and it's public property, at least they used to. But, I mean, if it's a park on a school property, you're not gonna stop people from coming to the park during school hours. It's a public park, so I will allow it. I'm just trying to understand, the issue seems that the will was violated. Money wasn't given to the county to maintain that money to do the park under those conditions and budgets. And you have an MOU that is not legally valid, in our opinion, it's stated opinion, for several reasons, that, and we're just discovering, and the reason this is happening, because it's almost like, oh, we're gonna do a park now, it's like, wait, and then all of a sudden an MOU that nobody's ever seen, gets given to the school board on February the 20th. Before it even comes to the county commission. County mayor, I don't know why you did that, you just sent it to the director and gave it to them, and didn't give it to general ops. You had it for several months, and they've been asking for stuff. So, the problem, the reason we're in a mess in getting these messes is because the company information, especially grants, aren't provided to begin with. In the minutes, it doesn't talk about you have to have a county parks department, it's a county park board. That is what was the requirement for the grant. If there's anything contrary to that, I would love to see it, because I've never read the grant, because it was never provided to the county commission, which is why I voted against it. And will continue to vote against it. So I think it's super important for the sake of transparency and just doing things the right way. I just don't understand why, unless it's for nefarious purposes, why it's so hard to do the things the right way. The fear, this part, I guess the school board taking it over, one is they're shooting the gun on it, but two is you've seen the school board propensity for asking for things that are just the Taj Mahal and top level, and they always exist. I don't want the school board being in charge of this for the sake of, Lord knows what they're going to put on there, and say, hey, children, give us more money. People are tired of that false rhetoric and that false narrative. I don't trust the school board to make the best decision with taxpayer dollars. I don't. When it comes to this part, I voted against this part because I don't trust that it's still part of this master parks and recreation plan that I voted against, and I would get rid of it if I could. I don't think it's a good document for the county. This is for the citizens of the property. I won't be voting to support this. Still continue with my 2020 votes, 2021 votes on this issue. I don't see that I don't see the protections in there, future abuses or financial or anything else. I understand that we do have to take this on, but I think this resolution is about, hey, this money needs to come back to the county because the county's responsibility for basically doing this part and not the school boards is how I'm interpreting it and hearing this. And the school boards jumped that gun. This MOU came out of nowhere to jump that gun. And opinion. I don't think it's necessarily make a decision now, but just say, let's give it to everybody, or just keep it taken. I don't want to make that decision. The library board is a different thing. We've been talking about that for 7 months, since August of 2023. This has just come up. MOU discovered it last month, a couple weeks ago, because it was presented at the school board. So to me, it's just trying to figure out, the purpose of this discussion, he got referred back, I think the spirit of what Commissioner Jones was doing was to there's new information here. What's going on? Things haven't been disclosed properly. It's not been a transparent process. And so that is just, I think, what we're bringing this back down to is, I don't even know if the school board can break ground and do anything right now if they're planning on it. I don't think they have the authority to do it necessarily. So it's just what is, this money needs to be transferred over to the commission, and then we're going to figure out what we're going to do within what's affordable in a plan that's not going to put us, we're going to take out a bond in the future to maintain the park, or just, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in the future to maintain the park. Because this is, with by inflation, you're going from $20 to $24, $25, $26 when the park might be complete. It's not going to be $25,000 to maintain whatever this is. It's $7,500 a year to maintain it. And so I'm just trying to just understand all that's been said and coming back, and you guys can correct me if my understanding is wrong, but it's just I don't know if you can move forward in anything other than the school board just giving that money to the county to decide, because that's legally what needs to happen. The first step, let's just get in compliance with the law and spirit of the will. I think I'm reading that the intent of this, and you correct me if I'm wrong, and then let's go from there. But let's support that resolution for that aspect. So, Commissioner Schiff.
I'm going to move to approve this. That's my motion. I'm going to make one note. I am going to explore with and maybe we can't, I don't know, but I am going to explore with the law director how to handle this deed, to either take it on completely or give it to the county, or give it to the school. I am somewhat agnostic about which way we want to proceed. I'm fine with the resolution because we're doing what we say we're going to do. It ties it to what it ties it to the building of this. So I'm going to support the resolution, but I am going to, in the next session here, the one thereafter, bring forward something to attempt to make the ownership of this as simple and unambiguous as possible, if we can do it legally. So my motion is to accept.
I second, but I'd like to discuss that, just one more thing, because I think the point is that if this is not something I want you to worry about answering right now, because I don't want to waste time. But would you mind coming next time, or would you just maybe send out a note or something? What happens, I just would like to know what happens if someone deeds property to the county and the county decides not to accept it. What's that process? I don't want you to worry about it right now, but I'm saying that's something that's important.
Say the question again.
If I were to deed you property and you were the county, and the county said, well, we can't take that on right now.
The county commission would do a resolution, and we'd accept it or reject it.
Yeah, you
don't need it.
Okay, that's it.
You disclaim it. Yeah.
So if that's, okay, he said Colorado is a good example. Okay, so.
That was taken on without a vote of the commission.
Yeah.
We never voted on that.
So to that point, what I'm trying to say is, and I love what Commissioner Shelf is saying, because I think that my fellow commissioner here is very well thought. He thinks through. But the issue is this: I don't think anybody cares who owns it, as long as I think Mr. Brown cares. But whatever that is, I think ultimately whatever that winds up being. But the ultimate issue is this: what the worry seems to be, I'm not trying to put words in my, but the worry seems to be, okay, if the county doesn't own it, but the county is having to pay for the upkeep, and if the school is making the size and the scope of the park, that's the worry, right?
Well, I question whether they have the authority to do that. So.
Okay, I know, but even if they have the full authority, just understand if that's the case. Well, if we say, okay, well, let's just give it over to the school, well, who funds the schools? Us. So therefore, it's like we're running into the same issue. It's not, we don't fund Hendersonville.
But we
That's the
don't
difference.
have, when it comes to the final budget, we can't go through their, like I said,
No,
county owns, you control how you.
No, I'm saying the opposite of that, I agree. I'm saying though, when they come to us, if they say, well, we need this much money, it'll be in their budget, and we'll be funding it either way, is what I'm trying to say.
Not necessarily, not if you don't approve their budget, that's not
I guess
true.
you're right.
It's just not true.
I guess you're right, but what I'm trying to say is, if we are the ones that own it, or if they're the ones that own it, like, it's the same problem, the same issue.
His own, not getting such out of scope.
I don't care who
The
owns it.
initiation of it is what you're being committed to, that you might not want to commit extra type of funds to it, and that's the biggest deal. And then I don't know what that grant said. Because I never voted on that grant. I don't know what kind of federal strings are attached to having greenways and walkways. We don't know what it says. It was never presented to the commission.
How do we see the grant? Where is it?
It's a great question. Why are we voting on this? It's not, Commissioner Jones, can you make it quick, last time?
This is super important. With all due respect,
I would
make
draw
a
my
motion,
I would draw my second.
with all due respect to the maker of the motion and the second, you guys are still missing the whole point. You can't vote on this resolution. It wasn't sitting here to vote on. We don't need you to vote on it. General Operations was fully capable of sending it to the full commission by themselves. We sent it back because it is in conflict with an MOU that you guys need to shred, or you need to say that it's okay to do, and then we will correct the resolution. This is not here for you to decide if our resolution is good. It's in conflict. We need help with the legislative body with how to make it right. It was already at the commission. We stopped it because it's in conflict.
Well, I
The
think I was,
MOU needs to be being discussed, not our resolution.
I think I was the one who asked to send it back, and I just sent it back because I wanted time to look at it. It's here, we can do whatever we want to with it.
Well, the resolution is about basically having the money transferred
Yeah.
to the county.
Yeah,
I think
Clear.
yeah,
clear.
it's clear.
There's no ambiguity in my opinion of that, but the issue is, well, the MOU, it is, whoever's saying we're committed to this MOU, it's not true. We know that is,
Yeah.
it's just, but this is a step to get control of those funds, and then decide how we want to maintain and manage that. And it's not the school board's, I don't see it in the purview, but then here's these grandiose plans for, $1.2 or $1.5 million, and you're on the hook for, $75 grand a year for maintenance. And it's like, wait a minute, we ain't even read the details. And plus, I think we need a lot more information. So I don't see how, and correct me if I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see how necessarily approving this negates anything of like looking at grant documents, seeing what we're held to or tied to. I don't think that would preclude that in any way. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No,
No, I withdraw my motion, but I want to make an amendment to this. That's why I withdrew my second. Yeah, I withdraw my second, and I want to make an amendment to that.
well, then, if you withdraw the
If I withdraw my second, I can't make
You can't
an
make it.
amendment.
You can make it.
He made a motion.
You seconded it.
And then I withdrew my second.
Well, then there's a motion still on the.
There's no motion.
Okay, got it.
Okay, I've made the motion.
Can we restate the motion?
The motion is to approve this.
The resolution.
The resolution, as written,
That was just a motion. So,
which, all that does, and just to be, I'm pretty much agreeing with you,
Moves 500,000.
which is saying, hey, move that 500,000 over here, we will build the park. It's stating, we will
but
do
it
that.
doesn't give the school board, like, they just start breaking ground.
Yeah, we're taking it and saying, we're gonna build it in accordance with the will. I don't have a problem with that. Now, I do have some other things we want to do tangentially, which I think several of us do, like I'm focused on the ownership, I think some people focus on maintenance. There's all sorts of other things, but I don't have a problem with this. Just transfer it, we're guaranteeing we're gonna build a park.
Got a motion, do we have a second?
I have a motion, I'll make that.
Second by Commissioner Fine. Okay, Commissioner G.
Okay. I just want to make sure we don't pass this and say, well, it's too late. I would like to ask to see the grant that this is tied to. I would like to reconsider, actually consider for the first time, the MOU that was signed, that was never passed by the commission. I'd like to see that, take that out of the equation.
Repeat the first part of what you said.
I would like to see the grant that's tied to this, like on what grounds, what that means, what it looks like for the county, the upkeep, all that. I don't know where that is. It's got to be somewhere. It's got to be in the grants department or somewhere. Not grants department, but there's got to be
be a filing cabinet that says grants on it.
I never saw it in the minutes, I don't remember seeing it in the agenda.
Oh, no.
I don't think I ever read the grant, it was just apply for TDA grant.
It's in the computer.
It was, I don't remember seeing it with the carryover that y'all approved.
It's possibly with all the paperwork the mayor has, or it's possibly with Tim Northby.
That's fine, but I guess I don't see how approving this even precludes like seeing a grant, because the fact is, you're saying, we're not approving anything. One, I guess lawfully and legally, the money needs to be transferred to county. Yeah, full stop. Exactly, it might be incorrect there.
Yeah, and I brought this up before, and I'd like to really bring it up again. This is an apples and oranges thing to me when you all use the term park. Because if I'm not mistaken, the actual house itself isn't even in the overlay for what they're calling the park. So it's really two separate things. So.
Well, that's what's confusing, is because the will says, where the stat makes the house in a park, that's a centerpiece of the park.
Exactly. So this would be a completely separate park, as it were.
Yeah, I understand what you're trying to say, school board can do whatever they want to with that land, but the spirit of the will, but they're trying to tie in the will to that money with what this is saying, and would probably disagree with your opinion, and that's basically, I think, is what
Correct.
contention is here. All we're saying is, I mean,
Even if we went with the school's, park plan, it would not satisfy the will because the house wouldn't be even connected to the park
which still
overlay.
leaves us a lot of options on what we can do to stop that. So, all I'm saying is this, go ahead, Mr. Bradley.
Do we know who drafted this will? If we can get the lawyer that drafted this will, maybe we can get closer to the intent.
No, it doesn't matter. The judge is gonna review the four corners of the will. He's not gonna take in anything else.
All right, so we've got a motion, and we've got a second. Commissioner Rogers.
Call the question.
Second. All right, all in favor, say aye. Call the question.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
All right, we got two.
We have roll call.
Roll call. Can you get a roll call on that, Commissioner Rogers?
Yes.
Sorry. Commissioner Rogers, yes?
Yeah.
Commissioner Klein?
No.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown, yes. Commissioner Mansfield, yes.
Commissioner Shelby's a yes.
Negatory. All right, so, we are two. So it passes in the affirmative, call the question. All right, so the resolution, the motion is to just approve this resolution as written. And so, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Commissioner Brown is opposed. I'm going to be opposed. Yeah, 2 yes, 4 yes, so it passes for the full commission. All right. Final item under new business, 5-year reappraisal plan. I'm going to, you want to get in queue for this one, or is that going to make a motion? Second by Commissioner Brown. Second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
I might need to throw something in here. It's my understanding that a bill is going through right now, which is trying to switch all this to a 4-year. I don't know if you want to go ahead and entertain the 5-year language, that's fine, but it might be worth deferring this until we get a little bit more clarity on the bill.
Oh, well, you're in queue, you're in queue.
Can you, I mean, last I remember, county mayor's profit session in 2019, and a 4-year option was the most expensive option for the county to execute. So I don't know why the state's trying to put us in that 4-year option.
I just got made aware of it by one of the commissioners this evening that this bill's moving through, so.
To force all the counties on a 4-year?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
They're not gonna make it effective until 2025, but we'll be forced to last one third. It's what the Senate bill is gonna consider and one third. But it's still not.
Okay, so it's not, doesn't affect us right now, so that's good. Commissioner, Robert.
From what I understand, like, of course, the commissioner just said it went to the Senate. My understanding is that the House, you could do an either or. Your county could pick to go 1 or 4, or a 5, or whatever. It was not a broad range, it was an either or.
I would, because there's some back and forth between the two legislative bodies of the state, I would defer this until after this legislative session.
Yeah.
same sentiments. The problem that I have with a shorter cycle comes down to political will. I spoke about this in 2019 when I voted against a 2-year or 4-year reappraisal plan. This discussion came up because it's like a frog in a slowly boiling pot of water. And when the shorter you make that cycle for citizens, the more incrementally slower the tax assessors, which is the county commission, can vote to raise property taxes. The previous commission, for 8 years, they raised property taxes twice for the amount of 38%. And so I cannot imagine giving another future legislative body a shorter reappraisal cycle. And I've heard some citizens spoke about this and talked about how they don't see how that's good for them because it's not. They give you a chance to raise my taxes sooner under the guise of a reappraisal. So I know citizens were very adamant against a shorter reappraisal cycle because it doesn't benefit them. And I'm here, I'm going to represent my constituency voting in, and he spoke about this last time, but the argument is still the same. I'm going to be against a deferral on this because I'm full support of a 5-year reappraisal cycle because I think that is the best for the citizens when it comes to protecting their pockets against political will. Mr. Mayor, you and I had this discussion back in 2019, and you couldn't disagree that a shorter cycle time gives political cover for a legislative body to raise taxes more incrementally and more often and slowly. And this be, frog in a boiling pot of water analogy. And so I haven't changed my position on that, and so I'll be against the deferral. So good.
One question, the reason why I seconded that was because I thought we just got a definitive that it was changed to a 4-year statewide.
We didn't. That's not true.
We don't know.
Okay, then I withdraw my
The second was Mr. Rogers.
No, I'll say.
What were you saying?
Yes.
Okay, well,
So I withdraw that.
I still move to defer, because, I don't disagree with you necessarily, but, if the state says something, there's not much we can do.
Who knows what the state will add to it.
Yeah. So that's my motion to defer.
I had a conversation on the front porch.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Schultz, we have a second by Commissioner.
And by the way, I don't disagree with what you're saying, I'm just like, the state may just override us here.
So the motion is to defer until April.
Until April.
I would, as a second, do you have to add to that?
Yeah. I'd like to amend the fact, I'd like to get CTAS in here to explain. Because, we had a briefing on this, what it was about a year ago, and they laid all this stuff out. So that's what I would like to at least get a briefing by.
I'll accept this request, ask the county mayor to request a briefing by CTAS. Yeah, so you don't have to amend it, I just accept that. So, just to defer and ask that, make that request.
No, we just deferred, I don't need to prolong this.
All right, so the vote on the table is to defer till April. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm opposed. All right, commission recognition and proclamations, Commissioner Rogers, I'll work with the water department on those proclamations and resolutions and everything. So, zoning, item A and D and E are all first readings, and they are simply adopting purposes for this purpose. And I have one more motion.
Motion adjourned.
So, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right.
We will begin, 8:30.